Next on the Kelly File tonight, remember Mumia Abu-Jamal? He is the convicted cop killer who was defended on his death sentence by a guy President Obama nominated for a top DOJ position. Well, Republicans and Democrats ultimately united to kill that nomination. But now it seems a California labor union is upset that a school district out west might not want to teach children that Abu-Jamal is some kind of hero. You see, this man's case has long been a cause célèbre for many on the left who believe he was railroaded because of his race. Now keep in mind, he was convicted of shooting Officer Daniel Faulkner 5 times, including in the face while the police officer was down, and his guilt was repeatedly upheld by several courts. My next guest believes that Abu-Jamal is not only innocent, but is similar to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. She wants this lesson taught to children. Johanna Fernandez is a history professor and one of the coordinators for the campaign to bring Mumia home. Ma'am, it's good to see you tonight. And so he was convicted. His guilt was upheld repeatedly, even though his death sentence was overturned. So the courts gave him a fair shot. Why on earth would you want to see children taught that this man is in any way like Dr. Martin Luther King?
Well, I think it's important to note that the racially coded language that's used in the media to describe Mumia Abu-Jamal, like a convicted cop killer, thug, militant, these words essentially stand in the way of really exploring what happened in this case.
Well, thug and militant are two descriptive terms, but convicted cop killer is factual.
Well, I think that the reason why the facts of this case haven't come to light is because of the influence of the Fraternal Order of Police on the prosecution, the judge, and the jury during this case. Let me give you a sense of one of the most important facts about this case. There was a 4th person at the scene of the crime who was identified as the shooter by 4 witnesses. That person was seen running away from the scene of the crime and was identified as the shooter, but the presence of the 4th person on the scene of the crime was suppressed by the prosecution and by the judge.
All right, but let me set the record straight on that, because that argument was raised before a judge who examined the record and rejected it out of hand. Moreover, the weapon that killed Officer Faulkner was found on Mumia. Moreover, several witnesses testified they saw him shoot Officer Faulkner 5 times. Moreover, they testified at trial. They heard him confess to it and refer to police in very derogatory terms. The evidence was there. A jury of his peers heard him and convicted him, including 10 white jurors and 2 black jurors, and that conviction was upheld repeatedly. Even though, if I accept everything you said, there's at a minimum controversy over the man. Why would you want students being taught that he has anything in common with MLK?
15 of the police officers who collected evidence in Mumia's case were jailed, convicted for tampering with evidence, for corruption and extortion. In this case, it's part of the record.
The appeals court found those allegations.
You are entitled to your own opinion, but not to your own facts.
The appeals court did not find that persuasive, ma'am.
This is part of the public record. You know why? Because one of the most important people in this case, Judge Ron Castile, who essentially is the head of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, he was asked to recuse himself from the trial, from hearing Mumia's appeal, but he refused to do so.
Wait, hold on. Relitigate the case.
No, I don't want to relitigate the case.
Supreme Court
I want to
rejected this.
establish why in this country you can have black people convicted, but that doesn't necessarily
This black person was convicted by 2 other black people, among others.
There is a long history in this country of criminalization of black people. Just because
were the black people on the jury biased against him?
Well, you know what? He was not convicted by a jury of his peers. 40% of the people in Philadelphia are black. But
so there weren't enough black people on the jury.
There weren't enough blacks in the jury. But let me finish the story about Ron Castile, because this is probably one of the most important issues in this case, which will explain why he hasn't been granted relief in the appellate process. This is an issue.
I'm trying to get us past the facts of the case, which I think we've shown the viewers are disputed.
understanding why the court system has failed
please,
Mumia,
I beg of you, because
not
I have a
just
short
Mumia,
time.
but
Please
so many
answer
other
the
people.
question
Okay.
about why any student should hear this man compared in any serious tone to Dr. Martin Luther King, who was against violence.
You know what, Ms. Kelly, I think that Americans don't really know who Martin Luther King was. By the end of his life, Martin Luther King said at the Riverside Church in 1967 that the United States is the biggest purveyor of violence in the world. He also said in his I Have a Dream speech that he could not stand by before the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. Essentially, by the end of his life, Martin Luther King, like Mumia Abu-Jamal, was a radical. What does that mean? Radical means a person who seeks...
I'm giving you the floor.
A person who seeks to address the root
I'm trying not
causes
to
of
interrupt
social
you,
problems.
but you can't just come on and talk.
Ma'am, but you've been interrupting me since I've gotten on.
I'm trying to get you on point. I'm
Oh,
trying to
well,
get
you know
we can't
what?
have time to relitigate
We're
the whole
having a
case.
conversation about a very complicated case.
Our conversation is over. Thank you for
having me.
Thanks for being here. We've got Jason Riley to respond to this. Are we going to go to him now? Or are we going to do him after the break? All right, we got to take a quick break. In the meantime, we want your thoughts. Jason Riley, the Wall Street Journal, is going to come on and respond to the professor you just saw. Go to facebook.com/thekellyfile. Follow me on Twitter, because I'm going to check my Twitter feed during the break. Let me know what you think, at Megyn Kelly. Jason's next.